The moment you hand your passport to the airline agent in 2026, a silent check is happening in the background that has nothing to do with your name or your destination, and everything to do with a new set of digital triggers that can cancel your trip before you even see a security scanner. We are officially 11 days into January 2026, and the travel landscape has shifted underneath our feet in a way that the airlines are not exactly shouting from the rooftops.
If you are still operating on the travel rules of 2024 or 2025, you are carrying a document that might be legally valid by the government standards, but is functionally useless by the airline's new automated boarding protocols. There is a massive difference between what the Department of State says is okay and what the airline's software will allow. And that gap is where thousands of travelers are losing their vacation investments this month. The first and most sneaky rule that airlines are aggressively enforcing this year involves the transition to the next generation passport. For years, the government has been rolling out these high-tech books with the polycarbonate data pages. But in 2026, the airlines have updated their gate readers to favor this new format. If you are still carrying an older style passport with the flexible, paper-based photo page, you are now classified as a high-latency passenger because the older books are more prone to digital misreads at the automated kiosks. Many airlines have implemented a policy where passengers with legacy books must undergo a manual verification that can take significantly longer. But here is the part they don't want you to know. If the manual verification desk is understaffed, which it almost always is, and you miss your flight because of a legacy book delay, the airline classifies that as a document issued on your end, not a staffing issue on theirs. This means you are not entitled to the standard involuntary denied boarding compensation. They are effectively using the technological shift to offload the cost of delays onto you. This is a massive shift in responsibility. And it is exactly why I've been telling everyone that information is the only way to protect your travel rights in this new era. If you find this kind of industry insider breakdown helpful, I need you to do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. We are tracking these 2026 policy changes in real time to make sure you have the leverage you need when standing at that check-in counter. Sharing this with your travel group or your family isn't just helpful, it's a way to make sure no one you care about gets stranded because of a fine print technicality. We are building a community of informed travelers who don't just follow the rules, but understand the systems behind them. Now, let's talk about the absolute passport killer of 2026, the digital validity window. We all know about the 6-month rule, where many countries won't let you in if your passport expires within half a year. But in 2026, the airlines have introduced a buffer plus system. Because of the new European ETIAS and the UK's ETA requirements, the airline's software now cross-references your return flight date with your passport's expiration and the specific visa waiver duration. If you are traveling to Europe in 2026, your passport doesn't just need 6 months of validity from your arrival. It now effectively needs 9 months of validity to account for the maximum possible overstay period that the ETIAS system allows. If the computer sees that you have 8 months left and you are flying on a one-way ticket or a flexible return, the airline will deny you boarding. They do this because if you are turned away at the European border for a validity issue, the airline is fined up to $10,000 and is responsible for flying you back immediately at their expense. To avoid that risk, they programmed their 2026 systems to be hyper-conservative, rejecting anyone who falls into that gray zone of validity. The physical condition of your passport has also become a non-negotiable point of failure in 2026. In the past, a little bit of fraying or a small souvenir stamp from a non-official source, like that cool stamp you got at Checkpoint Charlie or in a small village in Japan, was seen as a charming part of a traveler's history. As of January 1st, 2026, those are now considered document alterations. The new AI-driven scanners are looking for specific light refraction patterns on every page. If a souvenir stamp or a tiny bit of water damage obscures the reactive ink in the background of a page, the machine flags the passport as damaged and invalid. Airlines have instructed their agents to be ruthless. If there is even a millimeter-long tear on the cover or a loose thread on the binding, they will not let you board. Why? Because the automated gates in destinations like Singapore, Dubai, and the Schengen area will reject the document, and the airline doesn't want to pay the fine. Your passport needs to look like it just came out of the envelope from the State Department, or you are a liability in their eyes. Another sneaky change involves the blank page requirement. In 2026, the definition of a blank page has changed. It used to mean a page with no stamps. Now, for the airline's automated check-in systems, it means a page with no markings of any kind, including ghost stamps, those faint outlines left by a stamp on the opposite page. If your passport is getting full and you only have 2 or 3 mostly clean pages left, the 2026 scanners may read those as full. Many countries, especially in Asia and Africa, requires to completely consecutive blank pages for the entry visa. If the airline scanner doesn't see to 100% pristine pages, it won't even let the agent override the system to check you in. They would rather lose you as a passenger for that one flight than risk the international fine for bringing a passenger with insufficient document space. This brings us to the linked authorization trap. Starting in 2026, your passport is no longer a standalone document. It is the physical anchor for a dozen different digital authorizations. When you apply for your ETIAS for Europe, your ETA for the UK, or your KETA for Korea, those authorizations are digitally married to your specific passport number. The sneaky part is that if you have to get a second passport for business travel, which many high-frequency travelers do, or if you renew your passport, those digital links do not transfer. In 2026, the airlines have stopped checking these manually. If the digital link isn't found in the first 3 seconds of your passport scan at the kiosk, the system marks you as no travel authorization found. If you are in a rush and try to show the agent the approval email on your phone, they are often instructed to tell you that the system is the final authority. If the system doesn't see it, you don't fly. You must ensure that your digital authorizations are updated the second you get a new passport number, or you are effectively carrying a blank key to a locked door. We also need to address the biometric chip fatigue. Most people don't realize that the little chip inside your passport is a piece of delicate electronics. It can be damaged by heat, moisture, or even by being kept too close to the wireless charger for your phone. In 2026, the airlines have moved towards biometric first boarding. This means instead of a person looking at your photo, a camera looks at you and compares it to the data on your chip. If your chip is dead, which happens more often than you think with older books, the biometric match fails. In the 2026 airport environment, a dead chip is often treated with the same suspicion as a fake passport. While you can eventually prove your identity through manual means, the airline's turnaround time metrics mean that the gate agent is under immense pressure to close that door. If your chip doesn't read on the first 2 tries, they are increasingly likely to offload you to the next flight, so they can maintain their on-time departure stats. To avoid this, you should use a free NFC Reader app on your smartphone today to check if your passport chip is still screaming. If your phone can find the chip, neither can the airline's high-tech gate. For my domestic travelers, there is a sneaky 2026 rule regarding the use of passports for flights within the United States. Now that the Real ID deadline has finally, permanently passed, millions of people who didn't get their star-rated driver's licenses are using their passports for domestic trips. The airlines have noticed that this slows down the boarding process significantly. In response, some carriers have started implementing passport processing tiers. If you are using a passport for a domestic flight, you may be directed to a different, slower lines than those using a real ID compliant license or a digital ID on their phone. It is a subtle way of punishing travelers who haven't moved to the newer, faster forms of identification. If you want to avoid the passport's slow lane in 2026, you need to ensure you have a modern, digital-first form of ID. Even if your passport is perfectly valid, the most frustrating part of these 2026 changes is the airline liability shield. In the past, if an airline made a mistake and denied you boarding for a document issued that was actually fine, you had a lot of recourse. But with the 2026 update to the contract of carriage, the tiny print you agree to, when you buy a ticket, many airlines have added clauses that say they are not liable for the failure of automated document verification systems. They are essentially saying that if their computer makes a mistake and says your passport is invalid and it turns out to be wrong, they don't owe you anything more than a seat on the next flight. They are hiding behind the technology, using the black box of their software to avoid the costs of customer service. This is why you must be your own advocate. You need to know the official IATA International Air Transport Association rules for your destination better than the agent does. If the computer says no, you need to be able to politely but firmly show them the official manual that says yes. One specific 2026 trap involves dual citizenship. If you carry two passports, the rules for which ones you show to the airline have become much more rigid. Because of the new EES entry-exit system in Europe, the airline must record the exact passport you will be using to enter your destination. If you check in with your US passport but plan to enter Italy with your Italian passport, the digital handshake between the airline and the European border authorities will fail. In 2026, this results in an identity conflict flag. To avoid this, you must use the exact same passport for every single step of the journey: the airline booking, the check-in, the boarding, and the immigration kiosk. The days of swapping passports mid-journey to save a few minutes in a shorter line are over. The digital trail must be perfectly consistent, or you'll find yourself in a resolution room explaining your life story to a group of skeptical officials. Let's talk about the photo consistency issue. As we enter 2026, the facial recognition algorithms used by airlines have become incredibly precise. They are now capable of progressing your photos, but they are also much more sensitive to changes in weight, facial hair, or cosmetic procedures. If your passport photo was taken 9 years ago and you've significantly changed your look, the 2026 gate cameras may flag a low confidence match. When the confidence score drops below 80%, the system automatically requires a manual ID check. In a busy 2026 airport, a manual check is the kiss of death for an on-time boarding experience. If you look significantly different than your passport photo, especially if you've had surgery or a major weight change, the sneaky best move is to renew your passport early, even if it has years of validity left. The $50 you saved by waiting is not worth the $500 you'll lose when you miss your flight because a computer thought you were someone else. Another hidden change in 2026 is the transit passport rule. If you are flying from the US to Thailand with a layover in Tokyo, the airline's 2026 software is now doing a full route audit. In the past, they just checked if you were okay for your final destination. Now, because of new transfer visa requirements in several major hubs, the airline checks your passport's validity for the transit country as well. For example, if your layover country requires 6 months of validity, but your final destination only requires 3, the airline will deny you boarding at the very beginning of your trip. They don't want the risk of you being stuck in a transit lounge because you were rejected by the intermediate country. This chain of validity is catching a lot of people who only looked at the rules for where they were going, not where they were stopping. The signature trap has also made a comeback in 2026. With the move towards more polycarbonate pages, the signature strip has changed. If your passport is not signed, or if the signature is significantly faded or smeared, it is considered incomplete documentation. The 2026 gate scanners are now taking a high-res photo of the signature page and comparing it to the digital signature you provide on the touchscreen at the kiosk. If the two don't match, or if the page is blank, the system stops the process. Many people forget to sign their new passports when they get them. In 2024, an agent would just hand you a pen. In 2026, a missing signature can trigger a security referral because the automated system treats it as an unvalidated document. Always check page 7 or wherever your signature line is and make sure it is bold, clear, and matches your current handwriting. For parents and grandparents traveling with minors in 2026, the passport rules have become even more sneaky. The airlines are now strictly enforcing the parental consent digital link. If a child is traveling with only one parent or with a grandparent, the airline system in 2026 looks for a pre-uploaded, notarized letter of consent in the passenger profile. If it's not there, the system flags the minor for a potential abduction check. This is a vital safety measure, but the sneaky part is that the airlines aren't telling people about the digital upload requirements until they get to the airport. If you are traveling with a child in 2026 and you aren't both parents, you must have those documents digitized and linked to the child's passport number in the airline's app at least 24 hours before you fly. So, how do you protect yourself against these sneaky 2026 rules? The first step is what I call the digital passport audit. Take your passport out right now. Is the chip working? Is the signature clear? Do you have at least 9 months of validity? Are there two completely blank, consecutive pages? If the answer to any of those is no, you are at risk. Second, you need to use the airline app pre-registration. In 2026, most major airlines allow you to scan your passport with your phone's NFC reader days before your flight. If the app clears you, it means the airline's central server has accepted your document. If the app gives you an error, you have time to fix the problem before you head to the airport. Never, ever wait until you get to the kiosk to find out if your passport is compatible with the airline's system. Third, you must be aware of the carrier's specific quirks. In 2026, Delta might have different document integrity thresholds than United or American. Some airlines are using more aggressive AI than others. If you are flying a budget carrier like Frontier or Spirit, their 2026 business model relies even more heavily on automation. They have fewer staff members to handle document exceptions, which means if the machine rejects you, you are much more likely to be left behind. When you book a flight in 2026, you aren't just buying a seat, you are buying into that airline's specific technological ecosystem. Choose the one that has the most robust and human-friendly backup systems. Another major 2026 trend is the passport-linked wallet. Many travelers are now storing their digital ETIAS, their vaccination records, and their travel insurance in a digital ID wallet that is cryptographically linked to their passport. The airlines love this because it makes their job easier. If you use these digital wallets, you are often rewarded with priority boarding or express security access. It is a pay-with-data system where you give the airline and the government more access to your digital life in exchange for a smoother airport experience. For most, it's a fair trade. But you need to be aware that once you link these things, the sneaky rules became even more automated. If your travel insurance expires mid-trip, the airline system might actually flag your passport for a return leg hold until you can show a new policy. We are also seeing the rise of the subscription passport. In 2026, some private companies are offering a service where they monitor your passport's health and compliance across every airline and country in real time. For a monthly fee, they will handle your ETIAS renewals, alert you to signature decay, and even facilitate an emergency renewal if they detect your chip is failing. For high-stakes business travelers or seniors who travel frequently, this concierge identity model is becoming a necessity. It is a sad reality that the government's own systems have become so complex that you now have to pay a private company to help you stay compliant with them. As we look towards the rest of 2026, the sneaky rules are only going to get more prevalent as more countries move to the entry-exit system and as AI becomes more integrated into the gate check process. The golden age of the simple. The physical passport is over. We are now in the age of the biometric identity token. If you treat your passport like a high-tech electronic device rather than a paper book, you'll be fine. If you ignore the digital side of travel, you are going to spend a lot of time in 2026 looking at the back of a departing airplane. The final inside secret for 2026 is the agent override power. Despite all the automation, the human gate agent still has a master override key, but they are highly discouraged from using it. If you find yourself rejected by a machine, do not get angry. In the 2026 airport, anger is a security trigger. Instead, be the most prepared, most polite person they have seen all day. Have your official IATA printouts ready? Have your digital backup documents open on your phone? If you can make the agent feel like helping you is the right and safe thing to do, they might just hit that override button. But they will only do it if they can justify it to their supervisors, who will be reviewing the digital logs later that night. The airlines don't want you to know these rules because the chaos of non-compliance is actually profitable for them in some ways. It allows them to resell seats, avoiding fines, and pushing people towards more expensive premium ID services. But you don't have to be a victim of the system. By doing your audit, using the apps, and staying informed, you can keep your travel plans on track. You've worked too hard for your vacation to let a ghost stamp or a dead chip stand in your way. I want to hear from you because this community is our best early warning system. Have you already flown in 2026 and noticed a new kiosk or a weird question from a gate agent? Did you have an issue with your ETIAS link or a biometric failure at the gate? Share your stories in the comments because your airport nightmare could be the travel lifesaver for someone else. Let's keep each other informed and make sure that in 2026, the only thing we are worried about is whether the hotel pool is as nice as the pictures. What is the one thing you are going to check on your passport the second this video ends? Let me know below.